Hey guys, Sean from Livingseeds, your seed guru. Today we are going to be sciencing on Livingseeds farm. We are talking about coir, washed coir, buffered coir. What's the difference? Why do you need to know? And how do you make sure that you are using the right coir for your seeds? If you listen to the Americans, they call it coir. I don't understand how they get to the coir, but this is coir. And coir is made up of coconut husks and coconut fiber, and it is an absolutely fantastic amendment to use inside your soil. Our germination mix that we make on Livingseeds farm it comprises a large volume of coir, and what we have found is recently we are no longer able to get buffered coir in South Africa. It's becoming more and more difficult to get buffered coir in South Africa. What a lot of suppliers are doing is they're selling you washed coir, they're not telling you it needs to be buffered, or what they're doing is they're selling you washed coir and they're saying that you need to buffer it, and they might tell you how to do it, but you need to get the chemicals and you need to make sure that it's right. And what measurements do you use? Livingseeds has solved the problem for you. We're going to run through the process today. We're going to do a couple of tests. We are going to science on Livingseeds farm. Let me explain to you the difference between coir, how we get to coir, or how we get to washed and how we get to buffered coir. So coir is made up of coconut fibers, and it's one of the resources, and it's a sustainable resource from coconut production. So coconut milk, coconut for your baking, and then they make coir. And there are multiple grades of coir. There's white coir, there's black coir. Coir is used in furniture, it's used in mattresses, it's used in car seats, it's used in carpets, it's used to make ropes. And we use coir for gardening. Now, when we use coir for gardening, we need a very specific type of coir, because if we have the wrong coir, what's going to happen is it's going to negatively impact our plants. And I'll explain the process to you now. So what happens is, to get to this product over here, the coir needs to go through a process called retting. And basically retting is, think of it, the easiest way to describe is it's composted in water. And the reason why it's composted in water, they need a whole lot of elements of the coir to be stripped away to give the coir its property that we need in the soil. And so the coir is soaked typically in lagoons, and those lagoons are close to the sea. There's tidal action. What the tidal action does is it does a water exchange to remove the elements that need to be removed out of the coir for our purposes. Now, that whole action and this soaking process can take anything up to 6 months. So the coir is soaked in salt water for up to 6 months. And the soaking in salt water creates the coir that we need to use in our seedling mixes or hydroponic mixes or anything like that. But it also creates the problem that we need to resolve. Let's talk about the coir once it comes out of these salt lagoons. So what happens is, it's been soaking in the salt water bath for about 6 months. They take it out, they rinse it with fresh water, and then they compress it into these blocks. Now what you have is you have a salt-laden block of washed coir. Now let me explain to you why it's salt-laden. So the coir has a very high cation exchange capacity, and it is negatively charged. The salt inside the lagoon, the sodium inside the lagoon, has a positive charge, and as you know, opposites attract. So what happens is the sodium gets attracted to the coir and it binds to the actual coir. And this is the washed coir that you guys are receiving. The problem that you have now is that you need to strip the salt out of this coir for a couple of reasons, and I'll go through that process for you now. And you need to remove the salt, because if you don't remove the salt, what's going to happen is the very high cation exchange capacity of the coir is going to strip elements out of either your soil or out of your hydroponic mix. So what we need to do is we need to buffer this. And the buffering process is critically important for your success. And what we need to do is we need to replace the sodium that's in here with another element, so like magnesium or calcium. We use calcium because calcium's got a very nice bond to the coir particles, and in your soil or your hydroponic mix, calcium typically takes up around 60 to 67% of the calcium availability that you have. So what happens is, now you need to follow me with this step over here. You've got your coir, which is negatively charged. You've got your sodium, which is positively charged, and you've got your calcium, which is also positively charged. The cool thing is that calcium has got a stronger positive charge than the sodium. So what happens is, when you subject the coir to a calcium-rich environment, what happens is the calcium knocks off the sodium and replaces the calcium in the actual particle. So what you're doing is you are buffering the coir with excess calcium, so that what happens when you use the coir inside your soil, it doesn't strip the calcium out of your soil or out of your hydroponic mix. Let's talk about the science of today. So this is a really cool experiment. So what I've got set up over here, I've got two stainless steel milking buckets that we've washed nice and clean. I've got some RODI water, which is reverse osmosis water, and it's very, very clean water. We've stripped most of the minerals out, as I'll show you just now. We've got some coir blocks. So I've got, for this experiment, we're going to use two 650 gram blocks of coir. And then we have some calcium nitrate. So calcium nitrate is a highly available calcium a chemical, and what it's going to do is it's going to strip the sodium out of the coir and replace the sodium with calcium. We are going to test for that. We're going to show you how to test for it to make sure that your plants are growing perfectly. The coir products that Livingseeds sold in the past were buffered. So it was pre-buffered when we receive it, so you didn't have to buy any chemicals to buffer it. We are simply unable to get buffered coir. So what we are doing is we are now supplying you calcium nitrate so that you can do the buffering process at home. We're going to show you how to do it, we're going to test for it, and show you how to test for it. Every coir block, so the 5 kilo blocks, you can see the calcium nitrate over here. The 650 gram blocks, you can see the little bag of calcium nitrate over here. We've pre-measured it for you, so it's basically a case of add the chemicals, add the water, add the coir, problem solved. And it's a simple 3-step process, and I'll read it through to you. Okay, 3-step buffering process for 650 grams of the cocoa coir block. Step 1, dilute 45 grams of calcium nitrate in 7 liters of water. There's your 45 grams. Step 2, soak your 650 gram block in the water for 12 hours or overnight. Drain the excess water and use as required. It's literally as simple as that. So let me explain the experiment to you. So we've got 2 blocks of calcium nitrate. We've got 2 blocks of coir. One's got calcium nitrate, one hasn't got calcium nitrate. What we are going to do is we're going to test the water first, so you can see our base readings of water. We are going to soak this block without calcium nitrate, and we are going to soak this block with calcium nitrate. Tomorrow morning, we are going to be doing the tests and to show you the difference between each block. So what we've done is we've taken a sample of our RODI water, and we have measurements. So I'm just waiting for it to stabilize, and I'll give you a close-up so you can see what happens when this stabilizes, so you can see exactly what we are looking at. On Livingseeds Farm, we like to give you the shortest path to success. We also like to take the guesswork out of you growing the best food for your family as possible. If you find any value in this video, please like and subscribe. It'll ensure that this video gets out to as many South African gardeners as possible. Excellent. So I have my little pH, well, it's actually a multi-tester, and I'm going to take a sample of our RODI water. We put it inside here. And what we do is we wait for a little smiley face to appear. There's your smiley face. Let it just settle. So our pH is 6. We go to our electrical conductivity, and the conductivity is 27.9 microsiemens. Our TDS, which is total dissolved solids, there we go, is 20. and our salinity is 12.9. So now we need 7 liters of water, and I've got my jug that's measured off to 7 liters. So what I've done is I've measured out my 7 liters of water into these 2 containers. And basically I'm going to be dropping the one coir block inside here, the other coir block. Can I have a knife, please? Thank you. The other coir block gets put into 45 grams of calcium nitrate. Basically what we're making is a supersaturated solution of calcium. In this water, we just keep stirring it until it's nicely dissolved. So you can see that 650 gram block of coir has just swelled up beautifully. So what we're doing over here is we are just soaking the coir in our reverse osmosis water, and we will soak this for 12 hours. And I can tell you now what we expect to see. We expect to see a very high salinity in this water, and we'll drain water off here after 12 hours. Test the salinity in this water, and with this one over here, exactly the same process. You can see that the coir block is swelling up nicely, and this will basically fill up this container with coir. But what's happening with this coir over here is that this coir, the salt is being released. Sorry, what we expect to see is we expect to see a low salinity over here, and over here we expect to see a higher salinity because the salt is being exchanged for calcium. One of the things that we didn't do yesterday was take a base measurement of the calcium nitrate and water. So I'm going to do that quickly. Just put 7 liters of our RO water into another stainless steel bucket, just so that we can get a base salinity reading for the calcium nitrate solution. Okay, so bearing in mind that this is the calcium nitrate solution, so the pH is around 5.6, 5.7. Conductivity is 3.18 millisiemens. It was microsiemens for the plain water. The total dissolved solids 2.29 parts per thousand, and the salinity is 1,870 milligrams per liter. Let's move to the real test. So what we have over here, this bucket is the coir block that has just been soaked in water. This bucket is the coir block that has got calcium nitrate, 45 grams of calcium nitrate for a 650 gram block. Now, as you can see, this is undisturbed, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to push down, and you can see that liquid coming out. So I'm going to give it a bit of a stir. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to extract some of that liquid. So cool. So this is the water. Let me just rinse my hand over there. This is the water that's come off the block of coir that hasn't had any treatment. So we take that, screw that on, and let's move to our pH. So pH is dropping slightly. Yeah, it's still dropping slightly. Okay, let's call it a pH of 5.9. Then the conductivity is 673 microsiemens, and the total dissolved solids is 485 parts per million. The salinity is 327 milligrams per liter. So I'm just rinsing the probe in fresh water before the next test. Let me rinse this container as well. So now we go to the bucket with the calcium chloride, and I'm going to do
Calcium nitrate.
Calcium nitrate. Thank you, Joshua. Calcium nitrate. Give it a good mix as well. And we want to extract some water. I must say the water actually looks a little bit clearer, but that might just be an illusion from my side. Okay, so exact same thing. Let's fill this up.
It does look clearer.
Okay, so this is going to be interesting. So let's start with the pH. pH has dropped even more. So we've got a pH of 4.5, yeah, call it 4.54, 4.5. Okay, then our conductivity has gone to 6.74 microsiemens. Total dissolved solids, 4.87 parts per thousand. And our salinity, 3.68 grams per liter. And this is exactly what we want to see. Guys, I am so excited about these results because it just shows that we can do this in our own homes. So let's start off. There's a lot of figures over here. I'm going to run through this as simply as possible so that we don't get confused too much. So I'm going to run through the plain water, the Coir with just water, and the Coir with the calcium nitrate. So it started off plain water, the pH was 6.02, it dropped very slightly to 5.9, and it dropped even further to 4.5, but we all know that pH is pretty easy to correct inside your soil. The next one is the conductivity. So the conductivity tells you how conductive the water is, and it's related to what's dissolved in the water, which increases the conductivity. The more salts you have in the water, the more conductive your water is. So the plain water was 27.9 microsiemens, which is, as water goes, it's not very conductive, and water is very conductive. It went up with the Coir over here to 673 microsiemens. Over here, it increased by a factor of 10 to 674 millisiemens. So absolutely massive change in the amount of conductivity of the effluent that comes off of this. Total dissolved solids, this is the amount of solids inside the water. Our RO water was 20 parts per million, which is pretty good. I'm coming up to replacing the filters in the RO unit. The TDS, so it was 20 parts per million. With this one, it's 485 parts per million. So there's an increase of 465 parts per million in solids over here. In this one, we are 4.87 parts per thousand. Massive, massive increase once again. And it also looks like parts per million to parts per thousand. It's a massive increase. Then your salinity over here was 12.9 milligrams per liter. Over here, 327 milligrams per liter. So there has been some salt that has leached out. But over here, and this is exactly what we are looking for, it's 3.68 grams per liter. So it's gone from 12.9 milligrams, 327 milligrams to 3.68 grams per liter. That is a lot of salt that has been leached out of this Coir. And this is the reason why you have to buffer your Coir. You have to get buffered Coir, and you can do this test at home. You need a relatively inexpensive testing tool, but you can do this test at home. This is the reason why you want to be using buffered Coir to germinate your seedlings, and this is probably one of the reasons why the Livingseeds germination mix is absolutely fantastic, because our Coir is buffered. What's happened over here, and this is when I explained to you that the calcium is kicking the sodium molecule off the Coir, and what's happened is the sodium molecules are now in solution. So we now have inside here, this liquid that's coming out contains sodium nitrate, and all we need to do now is remove the water out of the solution. You can give it another rinse, and you now have charged or buffered Coir. The reason why this is so important, if you are using a Coir product, for your germination mix, and you're finding that you're having a calcium deficiency, what's happening is that the calcium that you're putting into to feed your plants is actually being absorbed by the coir, because the coir's got a higher cation exchange capacity. If you are using coir in a hydroponic setup and you're finding that you're getting things like blossom end rot or calcium deficiencies, it's because your coir hasn't been buffered. Guys, get your coir from Livingseeds. We are supplying the coir with the calcium nitrate. It is so important for your success.